After dating for 4 years, my boyfriend got his dream job and immediately announced it on social media with his new colleagues. I was heartbroken and confronted him. But he said, Serafina is my boss's niece. She can help me in the future and I'm destined to succeed. Can't you be less selfish? Don't tie me down for a little romance. If you truly love me, you should let go. We're no longer on the same path. Don't waste each other's time. I left heartbroken and found someone suitable to marry 3 years later. But on my wedding day, I saw my ex-boyfriend standing below, looking just as shocked. That's when I realized he was my fiancé's boss. My boyfriend and I were each other's first loves and had been together for 4 years. Everyone said we were a perfect match, like we were meant for each other. To be with him, I gave up my spot in graduate school, where I had the top grades in my field, and moved back to his hometown to prepare for an exam at a well-known local company. Orion Blackwood passed, but I was rejected for not meeting the professional requirements. Everyone called me foolish, but I was just focused on the happy life Orion had described, planning to try again next year. Then, I heard from someone I knew that Orion had announced the good news on his social media. I saw the screenshot of his WeChat moments, which not only included their official announcement, but also photos from their previous trips together. In the photos, they were smiling happily, which was truly beautiful but also a bit painful to see. It turned out they had known each other for some time, but he had set his WeChat moments to a restricted group, so I could only see blank content. The boyfriend who was so close to me last night is now publicly dating another girl. I sat there all day, reminiscing about the little moments we shared over the years. When he came home from work, I asked him what was going on. Orion first acted innocent, but after seeing the screenshots on my phone, he admitted it. Alara Vanderbilt? People always strive for better opportunities. My current company is a Fortune 500 firm, and I can't find a better job in this city. Serafina and I are a better match. Alara, Serafina, their relationship is obvious. Tears welled up in my eyes. I've been fighting for this opportunity, but I've already checked with HR. There won't be any positions suitable for my field until next year. By then, I'll have a chance, but what can you do? Orion interrupted me impatiently. To be honest, I don't believe you have the ability to get in, and even if you did, you couldn't compare to Serafina. Serafina is my boss's niece. Her family owns a factory. And being with her would make things much easier for me, Alara. Snap out of it? Your efforts can't compare to her family background. You and she aren't even on the same level. From now on, you and I are the same. I nodded, indicating that I understood, but I felt a bit ironic inside. Everyone says that once you've made it, you have to deal with the person you love. I never thought I'd experience this firsthand. Back then, to follow him, he painted a picture of a wonderful future, so I gave up my own opportunities. Now he's blaming me for not sacrificing for him and his little feelings. If I'd known it would end like this, why did I make those decisions back then? Seeing the despair on my face, Orion's eyes softened slightly, and he reached out to hold my hand. Alara, don't be like this. It's really not a big deal. We can still be together after I marry her. I'll give you a lot of money. You can choose to work or not work. Hearing those words, my heart instantly turned cold. 6 years of feelings were mocked in an instant. The sacred first love I once cherished in my heart was nothing more than an affair in his eyes, in his heart. I was just that kind of person. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Orion, let's break up. Orion seemed shocked after regaining his composure. He glared at me and said, Fine, you said it? Once I become a lighter and make money, don't come crawling back to me. That night, I took off the couple's ring Orion had given me, moved out of his house in the middle of the night, and booked a flight for the next day. My friends heard about it and all took my side, some saying Serafina Winslow was the other woman, others thinking she was innocent and had been kept in the dark. It reminded me of what Orion had told me, and the innocent smile of that girl in the WeChat moments. No girl would want a guy to be with her just because of her family background, right? That's not fair to her. After much consideration, I decided to tell the girl the truth after my friend sent me her WeChat message. To my surprise, Serafina immediately betrayed me and went to Orion to confirm my words. Orion is a smooth talker. With just a few words, he made Serafina trust him, and the two of them started accusing me together. Orion sent me a message accusing me, saying, Alara, how could you be so heartless? We've been together for 4 years, and you can't even tolerate me. Do you really think she'll believe you? You're so ungrateful. Serafina coldly mocked me. You were dumped because you're unattractive. Do you have to belittle your ex to ruin our relationship? I forced a smile, packed my bags, and rushed to the airport. Just as I was about to board the plane, I suddenly received a call. Is this Alara? Your boyfriend was drunk at nights in bar. Come quickly? My heart raced, but I quickly regained my composure and replied, I'm not his girlfriend. His girlfriend is Lai Serafina. Contact her? But he only remembers your number and claims you're his girlfriend. He seems very drunk and has lost consciousness. Please come quickly? I kept repeating those words. He only remembers your number and claims you're his girlfriend, and felt a pang of emotion. Perhaps the rational Orion chose to give up on me for his future. But the emotional side of him might still have some lingering feelings for me. I tried to contact Lai Serafina, but found she had blocked me. After all, we had been together for 4 years, and Orion had also been hospitalized before due to drinking. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing, could I? I gave up on boarding the flight, dragged my suitcase, and took a taxi to the bar. Little did I know that this act of weakness would be the worst decision of my life. When I arrived at the bar, I found Orion alone, slumped against the counter. The dimly lit room was filled with the strong smell of alcohol. I tried calling out to him, but he didn't respond. I had no choice but to lift him up, place his hand on my shoulder, and try to lead him outside. Suddenly, he slapped me across the face. I turned around and saw a face that looked familiar. It was the girl from Orion's social media. Before I could say anything, she started shouting at everyone around us. Everyone, come over here. Someone is trying to confront the other woman. The people who were there started gathering around us, watching what was happening. Serafina continued, everyone, come over here and see this girl. We've already broken up, and she's still clinging to my boyfriend. While I was in the restroom, she took the opportunity to flirt with him. Whispers of disapproval spread through the crowd. A proper ex should act as if they never existed. Harassing someone after a breakup is truly repulsive. Exactly? If you couldn't bear to part ways, why break up in the first place? If you think about it, she's probably the third party between us, right? I didn't even confront her, yet she started accusing me first, seeing the whispers and glances from the crowd. My voice trembled. Someone called me, saying he was drunk and unconscious, so I rushed over. I took out my phone and redialed the number to prove it. But all I heard was the phone turning off. Serafina sneered, you think you can get away with using an unknown number? Orion and I have been together the whole time. Who would call you? Can you come up with a more plausible excuse? The crowd started whispering again. Orion suddenly sat up beside me, though he looked drunk. He said, I'm not drunk. I was just resting. He stood up and walked towards Serafina, saying to me, I'm surprised. Then he said, Alara, we've already broken up. Please stop clinging to me, you're still a girl. Don't you have any self-respect? I like Lai Serafina now. I've told you many times, you should start your own life. Stop clinging to me. His eyes were clear, and his thoughts were coherent. He wasn't drunk at all. At this point, the people around us were discussing it even more heatedly. This woman has no shame. She's so beautiful. Why is she still clinging to her ex? Having such an ex is really unlucky. I dialed the number that had told me to pick someone up earlier. As expected, I heard the phone turned off. Lara, do you have anything else to say? Orion stared at me with a mocking expression. At first, he used some fabricated chat logs to sow discord between Serafina and me. Then he followed me to the bar, trying to get close to me while I was drunk. Ilara, can't you have some self-respect? I saw Serafina looking smug, with Orion holding her tightly, and realized I'd been played. I didn't say anything and turned to leave, but was blocked by Serafina's friend. Serafina held a glass of wine and handed it to me, saying, Alara, we both once liked the same man. That's some kind of fate. If you drink this glass of wine today, we'll let it go and go our separate ways, never bothering each other again. What if I don't drink it? I looked at her and asked. Then we'll have to ask Alara to stay and play with us here. Ilara and her friends gave me a sinister smile. I looked at Lai Serafina and Orion, who was looking nervous behind her, and didn't say anything. I just raised the glass and drank it all in one go. Unexpectedly. Shortly after leaving the bar, I felt a bit dizzy. Several strangers suddenly blocked my path. Hey, you've caused trouble? Someone sent us to teach you a lesson? He told us to tell you that this place in South City isn't suitable for you. Don't ever come back. I tried to use my phone to call for help, but it was snatched away from me. Several people dragged me into an alley. In the last moment of clarity, I felt utterly humiliated and wanted to end my life, but I didn't even have the strength to bite my tongue. Finally, a passing resident called the police and saved me. However, when the police arrived, the bar was already empty. All the surveillance cameras in the area were damaged, and no one could prove that anyone had attacked me. The phone number that had called me here was unregistered and never turned on again. Everything felt like a dream. My injured body and soul cried out in the darkness, recounting the horrors of what had happened. A few days later, Orion sent me a message saying, "Alara, don't ever think about defying me again. I still want to say, if you obey me, I can make you my pet. If you disobey, you'll face a lot of trouble." I didn't respond, just endured the pain in my body and left the city alone. I put my feelings aside. I didn't have time to get entangled with him anymore. Even if I had been blind before, I had to get my life back on track. On my first day back in North City, I re-registered for the graduate school entrance exam. This time, I decided not to rely on anyone else. I would rely on myself and fight for justice for myself. After returning to North City, I adjusted my mindset, prepared diligently for the exam, and was admitted to the graduate program I had previously given up on. In the third year, I was rehired by the company through a talent recruitment program. That terrifying night 3 years ago still echoes in my mind. I have never given up on fighting for justice for myself. Over the past 3 years, Orion has continued to climb the ranks with the support of the Lai Serafina family, but he has never stopped harassing me. When he got married, he sent me their wedding photos to flaunt his happiness. When he was promoted, he sent me his appointment letter, excitedly telling me, "Alara, I'm a manager now. I have over 10 people under me." I began to feel that Lai Serafina and I weren't a good match. Although her family background is decent, she's just a temporary worker in the company. "Alara, if you come to your senses now, it's not too late. Officials are always fickle. I'm willing to give you this opportunity. How come you haven't contacted me at all these years? Your life must be tough without me, right? If you want, I can help you find a job." As I read these messages, a mocking smile curled up at the corners of my mouth. I was too young back then to see Orion's true colors. He rose through the ranks so quickly. Wasn't it because of his connection with Lai Serafina? Once he climbed to the top, he started looking down on others. People like him will never know gratitude. There's no trace of it in their hearts. The last one was posted yesterday. "Alara, our boss has retired, and I'm getting promoted again. Today, Lysander told me that the Southern Branch's performance hasn't been ideal lately. So headquarters decided to send me there for 2 years to turn things around. He said he knows the situation there, and there are some issues I'm good at handling. He asked if I could bring someone along, and I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to go with me." Of course I'm willing. This is the opportunity I've always wanted. On the day Lysander Kingsley arrived, all the middle managers were already gathered in the conference room. Only Orion was late for some reason. Everyone was waiting for him. Lysander was reviewing the quarterly reports, while I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, admiring the view outside. Suddenly, a familiar voice drifted over. Lysander Orion's voice sounded a bit rushed and ingratiating. "Sorry, Lysander, traffic was bad. Did your wife keep you from leaving the house?" Someone joked quietly, and laughter filled the conference room. I turned my head and understood why everyone was laughing. There was a clear red mark on Orion's face, as if it had been scratched by a woman's nails. It seemed his married life wasn't going smoothly. Orion's face turned bright red. "Don't say that, it's just a broken zipper." Before he could finish, he suddenly noticed me standing next to Lysander. Surprise, panic, and fear flashed across his face. Orion hadn't expected to see me here. He grabbed me and pulled me aside, whispering, "Alara, what are you doing here? What do you want? Can't we talk about this privately?" I watched him panic, feeling a bit smug, and didn't say anything, until Lysander asked impatiently from the side, "What, do Orion and Alara know each other?" Orion froze for a moment, quickly let go of me and forced a smile, saying, "We're university classmates." "That's great," Lysander said slowly, introducing us. "Let me introduce you all. This is Alara, the technical advisor sent from our headquarters, and also my assistant. Please give her a warm welcome." As soon as he finished speaking, a round of enthusiastic applause erupted. Orion felt uneasy and hurried back to his seat amid the applause. I understood why he was so nervous. His supporter had retired, and Lysander had taken his place. The position he wanted required Lysander's approval. At that moment, I was standing beside Lysander, and he had previously conspired with Alara to frame me. Now, the future he had worked so hard for over the years was suddenly in my hands. How could he not be nervous? As soon as the meeting ended, Orion stopped me in the break room. Alara, what do you mean by that? There are so many other jobs out there. Why did you choose my company? I noticed his suspicious expression and smiled slightly. What do you think? Orion fell silent for a few seconds before suddenly laughing as well. Lara, are you not willing to leave me? Your family lives so far away in South City. What other reason could you have for coming here besides me? His confidence amused me, and I picked up my coffee and prepared to leave. Orion suddenly grabbed Alara's arm, pressed her against the wall, and said, Alara, do you know? I've been thinking about you all these years. I never liked Serafina. She's temperamental and not very smart. If it weren't for her uncle being a leader, I wouldn't have been with her. Now that I'm a leader, we can start over. He tried to lean in to kiss me. I struggled to break free. Orion, please behave yourself. Just as I finished speaking, Lysander's voice came from outside the tea room. Alara, make me a cup of coffee. I agreed and took the opportunity to break free from Orion's grip. Once inside the president's office, Lysander looked at the coffee in front of him and asked with a complicated expression, Are you and Orion very close? I didn't know how to respond. Lysander pressed further, So you're rejecting others because of him? He stared at me, his eyes filled with determination. As if he wanted an answer, I sighed softly, You could say that, but I promise it won't affect my work. Because of the wounds I've suffered in the past, I don't want to get too close to anyone emotionally. Lysander turned his head, his tone a bit displeased. If I'm not mistaken, he's already married. I heard the misunderstanding in his words but didn't want to explain further. So I gently reminded him, Lysander, the southern branch hasn't made any progress in recent years, and there might be corruption issues. Perhaps we should start investigating Orion. Lysander looked at me in surprise and said, Are you planning to expose your own people? I smiled and shook my head. It's about revenge. Lysander looked at me with a scrutinizing gaze. Seeming a bit less cold, tonight there was a welcome party at the office. Lysander and I were surrounded by a crowd of people. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the door. Serafina, ignoring the staff's pleas, barged in, and everyone looked at her in surprise. Today's gathering was mainly for senior leaders and above. As a temporary employee, Serafina hadn't been invited. However, she stormed in angrily. After 3 years, her once innocent face now looked haggard, reminding people of the word bitter woman. Serafina stomped over in her high heels, and Orion quickly stepped forward to block her. However, Serafina had already spotted me, her eyes filled with anger. She pushed Orion aside and raised her hand to strike me. Lara, I never thought you'd be the one to show such shamelessness. Wasn't the experience 3 years ago enough to teach you a lesson? How dare you come to South City to find Orion? Orion quickly embraced her and said sternly, Serafina, don't do this. This isn't a place for such behavior. Serafina grew even angrier. She pointed at me and shouted, Orion, are you speaking on her behalf? Can't you let her go? Don't forget who you are today. It's all thanks to her. Although most of the colleagues were aware of Orion's promotion, having Serafina bring it up directly made it feel different. Everyone exchanged glances, wearing expressions of anticipation for the spectacle. Orion couldn't take it anymore and slapped Serafina across the face. Shouting, Stop it, Serafina froze, tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at Orion sadly and said, You dare hit me. You relied on me to get where you are today. And now that you don't need me anymore, you dare to yell at me? Is that it? My uncle has retired, and no one can control you anymore, so you think you can yell at me like this? Orion covered Serafina's mouth with his hand, awkwardly greeted Lysander, and dragged Serafina away as she struggled. The welcome party was completely ruined by her. Lysander had been silently observing their actions until they left. Then he found an excuse to take me away from the hotel. On the way, Lysander asked me about my past again. Can you explain the 4 words you said that day? Did you want to take your ex-boyfriend back? Or did you want to disrupt the life of the other woman? Lysander had already figured out the nature of our relationship. I shook my head, lost in thought, and began to tell him about that painful past. I thought I wouldn't cry anymore. But by the end, tears couldn't help but flow. I didn't want to take him back. I just wanted to fight for justice for myself. Lysander remained silent for a long time before finally asking, was it Orion who found those people? Or Seraphina? I don't know. All the evidence has been destroyed, but I'm sure it has something to do with those two. Don't worry, Lysander, who rarely speaks, said with a hint of comfort in his voice. I'll help you. The next morning, HR notified Seraphina to take the day off, citing that it would be detrimental to company harmony. At the same time, Orion was also given a warning. After all this, Orion's chances of promotion were virtually gone. Everyone could tell he was in a bad mood, looking dejected. Seraphina's uncle, Thaddeus Winslow, wanted to treat Lysander to a meal to welcome him, but Lysander refused due to work commitments. The next day, Lysander requested access to all the HR and project materials Thaddeus had handled over the years. Everyone immediately felt uneasy. Rumors spread throughout the company that headquarters had sent Lysander and me to address corruption issues at the branch office. And Thaddeus was likely to be the first target after the new leader took office. After work, Orion found me, looking tense, and pleaded, Elara, you have a good relationship with Lysander. Could you say a few good words for me in front of him? I have no connection with Thaddeus. I laughed. Doesn't Orion feel uneasy saying that? Did you achieve everything you have today on your own? Orion stammered, then finally promised Elara, I'll cut all ties with the Chen family immediately. There will be no contact ever again. I didn't say anything, just watched him with a faint smile. To my surprise, the next day, I heard that Orion had divorced Seraphina. Not only that, but he also revealed some clues to Lysander about the improper relationship between Thaddeus and the contractor. Lysander followed the leads and quickly uncovered evidence of Thaddeus's corruption during his tenure. Soon after, Thaddeus was taken away by investigators sent from headquarters. That afternoon, Seraphina arrived at the company with a group of people to confront Orion, her emotions running high. She cried and screamed, accusing Orion of not treating them well. At the same time, she reported some issues Orion had encountered at work to Lysander. Due to work-related issues and an irregular promotion process, Orion was stripped of his leadership position and demoted back to an ordinary employee. Moving out of his private office that same day, in his low spirits, Orion placed his hopes on me. He invited me to a romantic Western-style restaurant, holding a bouquet of roses, and proposed to me in public. Elara, leaving you was my mistake, but I had no choice. Now that I've divorced Seraphina, I have a house, a car, and a job. Will you marry me? Looking at his expectant gaze, I couldn't help but laugh. Orion, 3 years ago, you lured me to a bar and humiliated me in public. You seem to have forgotten that. It wasn't my fault. Orion shook his head hurriedly. It was all Seraphina's fault. She insisted I prove my love for her instead of you. So she made me put on that show. That phone number was also arranged by Seraphina. I didn't say anything, just listened quietly as he spoke. Elara, Orion continued, do you know that I've regretted it all these years? I often dream of you, and the silhouettes I see on the street are yours. Can you give me another chance? Sure, I replied simply. Then tell me what happened after I left that day. Under my guidance, Orion slowly revealed what happened after I left, including how Seraphina asked the bar owner to close the place. In the end, he suddenly changed the subject. Elara, you're Lysander's assistant. You should say something on my behalf. When can I get my job back, after all? The two of us are meant to be together, weathering storms and sharing burdens, yes, I replied casually. After Orion left, I stayed there listening to the recordings. Lysander walked over from the nearby booth. Elara, now that we have this evidence, we should report it to the police immediately, due to the previous police report and Orion's recordings. The police quickly arrived and brought Orion and Seraphina in. The two argued fiercely at the police station, each trying to shift the blame onto the other, making the scene look quite amusing. As they continued to expose each other, the truth about the past was quickly uncovered. It turned out that Seraphina had asked me to go to the bar to prove Orion's love for her. But she felt that wasn't enough. So, she used her connections in the area to hire some people to deal with me. Although Orion wasn't directly involved, he had noticed some clues from Seraphina's words. He chose to ignore it, prioritizing his own future and letting her harm me. The police arrested everyone involved in harming me based on the information they provided. In the end, Seraphina was sentenced to 10 years in prison for incitement, while Orion was sentenced to 5 years for harboring a criminal and other charges. On the day the verdict was handed down, I finally felt a sense of peace. Orion couldn't believe it and shouted at me angrily, "Alara, how could you do this to me? I loved you for 7 years even after marrying Serafina. I still thought of you in secret, hoping we could reconcile. How could you do this to me?" I laughed coldly and said, "Orion, what kind of love is that? You always wanted so much, yet you were always fixated on what you couldn't have. If you truly loved me, how could you let someone else insult me like that?" Orion didn't say another word. He suddenly burst into tears. I realized that I should have had a happy future. It was my own greed that led me to this point. I didn't respond. I simply stood up and left. To my surprise, Serafina actually wanted to see me. She was handcuffed, her hair cut short, and her expression looked dejected. No longer the confident girl she had been 3 years ago. Her eyes were red, and she stared at me and said, "Alara, I really hated you before. You were Orion's first love. You had 4 years of beautiful times together, and you're just as outstanding as he is. Actually, Orion might not even know that the two of you were more suited for each other. When you told me the truth through WeChat, I understood deep down, but I just couldn't accept it. I had never met such an outstanding young man before. No matter what he had done in the past, he chose me in the end, so I didn't want to give up and pretended to believe him. But I envied your honesty and the love you received, so I wanted to find someone to take it out on you. I never expected that not only did you not fall, but you rose even higher and destroyed my only support." She suddenly looked up and smiled. "Now I hate you too, but I hate myself even more. You know, many people leave immediately after being deceived by a bad person, but I let myself stay trapped in this situation. Actually, my current situation is all my own doing. Do you know? During the years I was with Orion, I often heard him calling your name in his Dria Mtikes. He secretly went out to find other women. And I had someone follow him, only to discover that the woman looked a bit like you." Serafina said a lot, but I just listened quietly without interrupting. As a woman, I tried to help her, but she chose to deceive herself for her own feelings, and in the end, she had to bear the consequences. This was bound to happen sooner or later. When I stepped out of the meeting room, the sun was shining brightly, and the scent of spring filled the air. The heavy burden on my heart suddenly lifted. And I realized that this feeling was called letting go. Finally, I could draw a perfect conclusion for the version of myself from 3 years ago, who had suffered so much yet could only flee in haste. "Alara, from today onward, keep moving forward and do what you truly love." "Lara," a familiar voice called out to me from the distance. I turned my head and saw Lysander standing at the exit, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and waiting for me. I smiled at him and walked over. Lysander handed me the flowers and couldn't help but smile. "I've known you for so long, and I've never seen you smile so happily." I smelled the sunflowers in my hands and said, "From now on, I'll stay positive." Lysander was silent for a moment and then asked, "What about the birthday gift I wanted before?" Memories slowly came back to me, and the scenes in my mind gradually became clearer. A year ago, I had been interning at a company for half a year. Because I worked hard, Lysander took notice of me and promoted me to his assistant. That day seemed to be Lysander's birthday. He was usually very busy, but he unexpectedly took me to see roses and confessed his feelings to me in the flower field. He said, "Alara, for the past 30 years, I've been busy studying and working. But today I want to give myself a birthday gift. I want you to be my girlfriend. Will you?" Looking at the tall, handsome Lysander, a wave of intense self-doubt swept over me, and tears began to flow uncontrollably. "No, I really don't deserve you." "Why?" Lysander asked me again. I recalled that humiliating night 3 years ago and said nothing, just hurriedly left. Since then, Lysander never mentioned that night again. I thought he was just joking around, and since I had other things on my mind, I forgot about it. I never expected that after so long, he would bring up the past again. "Alara," Lysander called my name again. I looked out the window and called out to him before he could speak. "Lysander, I want to request a transfer back to headquarters. Headquarters is far from here, and Lysander's term is 3 years. I hope he can understand my decision." He remained silent for a moment, didn't ask why, and simply said softly, "All right." At that moment, I sighed in relief, but felt a bit disappointed inside. On the day I reported back to headquarters, I unexpectedly saw Lysander coming out of the HR office. Ly G, the HR director, was my senior. before I could speak. He complained to me with a hint of dissatisfaction. Alara, you're really something. You keep transferring our promising Lysander around. You're fine, but Lysander was doing well at the branch office. After 3 years, he could have advanced further. It's a pity to give up halfway. I was surprised and said, Lysander going to the branch office wasn't his own decision? Lai Ji smiled softly and said, you previously applied to the company to be transferred to the branch office, and Lysander found out. He heard that your ex-boyfriend was in South City and thought you wanted to go there to chase after him. So he requested the transfer. Otherwise, Lysander was doing so well at headquarters. Why would they transfer him to such a remote place? I was speechless for a moment. Little Junior, I just want to remind you that Lysander is a great catch. The young people in the company are all keeping an eye on him. Don't let your overconfidence make you miss out on someone suitable. I didn't respond. I just stood there dumbfounded before leaving the office and pushing open Lysander's door. Lysander was listening to his subordinates report on their work. When he saw me come in, he dismissed them and asked, what's wrong? I paused, looking at him. You've been at the branch office for 3 years. You could have been promoted after returning. Why did you suddenly come back? Lysander saw the tears welling up in my eyes, stood up and walked toward me. Did that guy Lai Zhigang say something to you? I didn't answer, but tears were already streaming down my cheeks. He wiped away my tears, looking a bit flustered, and said, don't cry. I came back because I missed home. This is my home. I didn't say anything but reached out and hugged his waist. Lysander froze, trembling as he held me. Alara, are you willing to accept me? I bit my lip and said, my past is so shameful. You didn't know before, but now you do. Would you still want to be with me? Lysander cupped my face in his hands, making me look into his serious yet clear eyes. I know everything about you, but I don't think it's a big deal. I won't let you think that way either. You just happened to meet the wrong person. It's not your fault. If you still feel uncomfortable, I can stay with you and help you work through it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I'll wait for you. Tears of emotion flowed uncontrollably. Lysander lowered his head and kissed me, wiping away every tear. On the night I left South City, I thought I would never love again or fully accept another man. But at this moment, I decided to try again for Lysander's sincerity and for my own happiness. Actually, Lysander is a good boyfriend. Due to past wounds, I once couldn't accept his more intimate gestures toward me, but Lysander always patiently comforted me, stayed by my side, and waited quietly for me. I gradually let down my guard toward him, returned to a normal life, began to forget those wounds, and even needed to cuddle in his arms every night to fall asleep. 3 summers later, Lysander and I finally walked down the aisle. Just moments before the ceremony, someone rushed into the bridal suite despite being stopped. I looked up and saw Orion's face. His brows were furrowed. And at 30-something, he looked older than his age, though dressed in a suit. He exuded a sense of despair and inadequacy. He grabbed my hand and said, Alara, don't get married. I've already come out. I've already missed you once. I absolutely don't want to miss you again. Come with me. Let's go back to South City and live a simple life together, enjoying our time as a couple. Isn't this exactly the life we once dreamed of together? I vaguely remembered that in my 20s, we had indeed imagined such a life together, but hadn't all those beautiful fantasies been shattered by him? Looking at the anxious man in front of me, I firmly pulled my hand away. Orion, the past is the past. You should move on. Orion tried to persist, but Lysander stood in front of me, blocking him. Orion, you're just in time. From now on, Alara and I are legally married. If you're willing to bless us, please sit down and have a drink with us. If you're just daydreaming, then please leave. Orion looked at me, his expression calm, and finally said nothing, slowly walking toward the guest seats. Throughout the entire wedding, someone kept watching me with eager eyes. Lysander held my hand tightly and said, Alara, don't be afraid. I'll protect you from now on. I nodded gently and gave him a relaxed smile. The groom may now kiss the bride, the officiant announced loudly, and cheers filled the hall. Lysander kissed me deeply. The figure in the crowd below finally left in a hurry amid the cheers. Goodbye, Orion. I hope we never meet again.